Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is the first video I'm recording in 2025. Sounds weird to say, but today we are doing my 2024 reading wrap up, and to start off I'm gonna do my little analytics of the year for reading. I was gonna do it on Fable because I did do it on Fable before, but I can't find it right now, so we're just gonna do the Goodreads version. So I read 13,071 pages and 34 books total. The shortest book I read was the novella in the Natural series. The longest book I read was book 3 of The Keeper of the Lost Cities. My average book length was 384 pages. The most shelved book was Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Least shelved book was Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice. My average rating was 3.9. Highest rated on Goodreads was The Last Olympian, which is the last book in the Percy Jackson series. Why was that so hard? I do know that Fable said I was in the top 5% of children's fiction readers and young adult fiction. So that's kind of funny because apparently I read children's fiction a lot more than anyone else. But it's because of Percy Jackson and Keeper of the Lost Cities. But we're going to start. So I have 34 books that I need to retrieve from my shelves real quick. Which I gotta pull this back out because I don't even remember what they are. Okay, I think I have all of the books here, but I could not. But I was a little bit upset because I thought, like, I read more last year than I read this year, and so I was a little upset about it. But looking at this is kind of a lot of books. Like, that's kind of a lot of books, in my opinion. But I'm gonna attempt to go in order. So starting off January, the first 2 books I read were the first 2 books in the Percy Jackson series, and we got these new dust jackets from Nerdy Ink, and they're really cool. So if you like Percy Jackson, you should get these. But I read the first 2 in the series, and I was kind of reading it with Cameron, but also, like, he read them faster than I did. But I rated both of these 4 stars. It was really fun to read, and whenever I think back to it, I think I read this in the summer because I think only the first book is set in the summertime, but in my head, all of it is in summer, and I read it during summer, but turns out I ran it during January. So that's the first 2 books. And then next was a new release from Teresa Levenseller, which was Vengeance of the Pirate Queen, with the sprayed edges. And I really like the series. This book was, I think if you didn't love the series, I don't know if this book would be great. I did rate it 4 stars. I just really like her writing. And she was my favorite author, but I think I'm revoking that statement. But at this time, she was my favorite author, and I was so happy that she released another book. She released another book. So, 4 stars. And then next we read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And Fable said that this was like hype cherry because like the most people had read it. But I read this also at the end of January, and I gave it 3 stars. I mainly listened to the audiobook of it, which probably hindered my rating of it because I do not like the voice actor for whoever recorded this, because I listened to a couple other books that she recorded and I just don't like her voice. So that probably lowered my rating for this book. But I also was like a little bit bored. But I read it because my sister-in-law said it was like so amazing and she loved it and life-changing, and my life was not changed. Next, still in January, I read the next 2 books in the Percy Jackson series, so 4 and 5, and this is what the dust jackets look like. Super cool, super awesome. And I rated both of these 4 stars. This series is just really fun to read, and it's like not hard to read at all. I thought I read this in 2023, but I didn't finish it until the 8th of January, so The House on the Cerulean Sea. This book was not about what I thought it, well, I guess it was about, but also the romance in this book was such a lie and like out of nowhere, so I did not enjoy that. But I gave this 3 stars. Next, I read The Demigods Files, which I don't have with me, but that's just a novella in the Percy Jackson series, and I gave that 3 stars for some reason. I don't even remember what that one was about, which is probably why I gave it 3 stars. And then, okay, we are now into February, and the first book I read was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the first book in the Natural series, and I gave it 4 stars. I like these characters. They're very similar to the characters in Inheritance games, like in my opinion, just like the way she writes characters. I get them confused. So like later on in the series when I was reading, I kept getting like confused which series I was reading for some reason. Next, I finished the Percy Jackson series, which is crazy that I finished a series like in kind of a month span because I never do that. But this is the 5th book of the Percy Jackson series. I gave it 5 stars. And this was actually the highest rated book that I read. I didn't even see that there. Cool. But I definitely need to start the next series. I did start it a little bit, but I need to finish the rest of these books because I just love reading them. They're super easy and super fun. Next, I finished this March 1st, so I guess we're on to March. But this is the 2nd book in the Natural series, and I gave it 4 stars as well. I don't remember like what happened in the different books. I just know I really enjoyed the series. Next, I read Anna and the French Kiss. I honestly did not know that I read this year. And I think I get it confused with Again But Better. Or I think I get this book confused with something else because I actually don't remember what happens in this at all. Like, I don't remember anything. So 3 stars. Cannot tell you anything else. Next, on my thing, I have this out of order, but I read the next 2 books in the Natural series, which means I finished my 2nd series of the year in March, like mid-March, and I gave both of these 4 stars. And there's like, this one looks really thick because there's a novella at the end, which I did read later in the year, but for now, these 2 are 4 stars. Then I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter, and I think I read this from the library, which is why I don't have it with me, but I rated it 4 stars, but honestly, I don't remember what happened in that. Like, I need to read like a synopsis or something because I don't remember reading that book. Apparently, I have this feeling a lot of me not remembering what happened in the book, but I gave it 4 stars, so apparently it was good, but maybe it should be 3 stars because I don't remember it. Next, this book always reminds me of our honeymoon because this is like the main book I read when we were on our honeymoon, and it's the last book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, so I finished my 3rd series of the year, and I gave this 4 stars. It took me a little bit to finish this. I don't know why. It is pretty thick, but also the pages are really short, so I feel like that cancels out. It said it only took a week and a half for me to read this. Maybe it didn't take that long, and I just felt like it was long. But I read this on the honeymoon, so every time I look at it, I think of our honeymoon, which is so fun. Next, we have Emily Henry's new release, which was Funny Story. I really like the spine of this because it has lemons on it, and it's so cute. I did really like this book. I do get her books are very, not confusing, but I do get them mixed up a lot. But I think I get this one mixed up with Happy Place. But I still know what happens, so this one was 4 stars. I just love Emily Henry's writing, except I have never read Book Lovers, and I've tried to like 6 times, and I've just never been able to get into it. I'm gonna try again this year, but Emily Henry's new release was a 4 star. Next, we started another series, which I need to finish series I'm in the middle of, but I decided to start this because I worked at a school where like a lot of the kids were reading this series, and so I was like really intrigued. But this one is like bigger than the rest, so this is what the rest of them look like. This one is taller, and I love it because it's like so floppy, but it's also annotated by the author, which I just thought was so fun, which is the reason why I got it in the first place. But I really like this book, and it's a really fun series. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know if I said that. Next, we started another series. So the first book in that series is Renegades, and I read this with my friends Jenny and Casey. And this book I gave 3 stars because it was honestly hard to get through. Like, it's a lot of world building. But this is my favorite series ever now. But the first book was 3 stars. So if you want to read the series, you just need to push past the first book, which is sad to say, but I still liked it. It was just really slow at parts, so I kind of had to push myself. Next, we read another new release from Teresa Levenseller, which was The Shadows Between Us, and I actually loved the first book of this, and I really liked this one too. But I read this like right when it came out, but it's really cool sprayed edges on her books. This book I gave 4 stars. And the only thing I wrote on the review was that it's closed door. So that's fun. Next, I read Jennifer Lynn Barnes' new release of the year, which was Grandest Games, which is a new series that she's starting that's with the same characters from the Inheritance games, which I rated this 4 stars. I feel like I'm never going to rate something from her lower than 4 stars just because I really like her writing, and she may be my favorite author now. That's up in the air right now, but I think it may be Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Next, I read the next 2 books in the Renegade series, so I finished my 4th series. Yeah, this is the 4th series I finished in the year, and also we're into August now, so I forgot to update you, but we're into August. I rated both of these 5 stars, so these were the first 5 stars of the year in August, so it's so sad that it took 8 months for me to find a 5 star, but we found it, and I wish I could reread this book, like these books so bad. Like I loved it so much. I was still reading this with Jenny and Casey, so we kind of read this together. And honestly, I was the last one to finish this book because it was taking me a little bit to get through it. But the only thing I wrote on the review is consider me crushed. So that's a little insight. And then for Supernova, this was the last book. And right after I finished that book, I jumped into this one because I was like so hooked. And I finished this before they even started this book, but I rated this one 5 stars, and the only thing I wrote was so good, period. So if you need a YA series, you should definitely read this and just push past the first one because it gets so good. Next is the novella that I said was in this book. It's called 12, but it's at the very end, and it's honestly pretty short. Well, obviously it's a novella. So I didn't read this. When I finished this book initially, I didn't realize that there was a novella in the back of it, and then I kept seeing stuff about it, and I went back and I was like, oh, there's a novella. Which I probably should have realized because I finished and there was still like this much left of it. But I gave it 4 stars. I feel like it's hard for a novella to be 5 stars. Next, we're still in August. I read Warrior of the Wild by Teresa Levenseller. This was one of her older books. I just hadn't picked it up yet. And I gave it 4 stars. I do remember this book very well because it's very different, but like it's a unique story in my opinion. It's about, they have these competitions every year, and I forgot the reason for the competitions, but if you lose said competition or like get bit by these creatures, then you get banished into the woods, and there's like 1 million of those creatures in the woods. So the idea is that you don't come back, and they give you a Mardiger or something like that. I forgot the name of it, but it's like this task that's basically impossible to complete. And so basically they're sending you off to die. Like she's like, I'm not giving up, I'm gonna finish my task. So I gave that 4 stars. Next, we are into September. I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, which I thought this book was going to be so good because the inside art is like so pretty. And Cameron picked it out, and it sounds kind of like How to Train Your Dragon vibes, but I just think this story was kind of all over the place in my opinion, and I gave it 3 stars. Oh, this was the first book I finished in October actually. Next, we have Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice. I loved this book. I think the average rating on Goodreads is like 3 stars, which is, I see why. But at the time that I read this, I was like craving like fall vibes and like a fun, cheesy little romance. And this is like mainly about her family's coffee shop and just like a very fall town. And it was like exactly what I needed when I read it. So I gave it 5 stars, which is a little bit much. Even now that I'm thinking about it, that's a little high. But I'm keeping it at 5 because I think I'm going to read this again next year, and I just loved it. And I always tell other people to read this, and then I think back to the Goodreads rating being 3 stars, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. Let me look what the actual rating is. 3.05. So that's pretty, I probably wouldn't. I usually don't pick up books if I look at Goodreads. I wouldn't choose a book that had less than 4 stars on it, but this book is so good. Even just looking at the cover. So in fall, whenever you need a fall book, you should read this one. Also during fall, when I was trying to get all the fall vibes, I read my first Riley Sager book because I've heard a lot about him. And this book is Middle of the Night. It was one of his newer releases because it was the only hardcover they had at the store, so I got it. And I give this 3 stars. 3.5. I think it was really fun. With it being kind of like a suspense thriller, I was expecting more of like a reveal at the end, which there was a decent reveal. I just don't think it was good enough. But it was still good. I wouldn't say, like, don't read it, but I do have another Riley Sager book that I got for free the other day, so I think I'm going to read that one and try again, but I just didn't absolutely love this one. Next, we have Today, Tonight, and Tomorrow. I bought this book on sale, like, a while ago. We're also in November now, so Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. This is a little romance about, they're in high school, and it's, like, their last day of high school, and they always have this type of competition for the seniors, and her little like arch nemesis from like the whole time, who was like competing for valedictorian, kind of team up for this game. I just don't think I like this author's writing, and she puts like a lot of extra stuff in it and like trying to address certain problems in society in a romance book, and I just didn't like it, and I don't feel like reading about that, so I gave it 3 stars. Oh, next, I don't have this book, but I read it in my 24-hour reading challenge, was Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. I really like this book. I gave it 4 stars. I see how it could be easily a 5-star. I just was not in the mood for like motivational writing. Like the main character would always like turn everything to be like a big life story, and I just kind of wasn't in the mood for that at the time that I read it. So I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was Keeper of the Lost Cities Everblaze, but I think I picked up the wrong book earlier, so this is Exile. I read this earlier in the year. This is the third book in the series. There's like 11 books right now, and I think there's even more coming out still, so I'm not gonna finish the series for a while. But I gave this 4 stars. And then, oh yeah, I read that in July. Now this is Everblaze, and I read this also in my 24-hour reading challenge, and I gave it 4 stars. Same thing, fun series. It's very similar to Harry Potter, but they're like elves, and it's different, and it's a girl main character. So it's different, but it's the same. And then I have Games Untold by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is her newest release, and this is like another different series, but they're like all connected obviously. But this was a 5-star. I love this book so much. This is like novellas, and it was so fun. There's 2 novellas in here that I like absolutely loved. First one that I loved was The Same Forward as Backwards, and then the other one I loved was Secret Santa. But there's a lot of novellas in here, but I just really loved it. The last book is not here, so let me go find it. The last book I read of the year was The 7-Year Slip, and I finished this on December 31st because I had already put it in my bullet journal that I read it last year, and I was like, I have to finish it. Like, I can't not finish it because I already glued it into my journal. But I love this book. It was really fun. I see how it could be 5 stars. Like, it probably would be 5 stars if I liked spice, but I don't like spice, and everything on Fable says that it has some spice, like only like a little bit, and in my opinion it was like kind of a lot. So I just think if you want to do closed door, then just do completely closed door, or like I feel like you shouldn't have like an iffy. I feel like she just shouldn't have put spice in it. So if there was 0 spice in this book, it would be like a 6-star book, but it had spice. So, but I still really liked it, so 4 stars. So that is all 34 books I read this year. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully I get to 50 books this year because I've tried the past 2 years, and the year before last I got to 48 I think, or like 47, which I was so close. So why did I not just finish? But maybe this year we will read 50 books, possibly. If you have not subscribed, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. I'm trying to get a thumbnail. Oh frick. I just redid my shelves, and now I have to figure out where I had all these books at. Oh, I forgot to say bye to you. These were my only 5 stars of the year. So, a year's worth of reading and 34 books to get 5 5-star books. Now, does that feel worth it?